A couple of years ago, I made an episode of Fact Hunt based on all the dumb things said by games journalists. However, to everyone's surprise, I know right, this was merely the tip of the iceberg, and if anything, they're even worse this time around. So, this episode, we once again take a look at these ridiculous reports, these moronic motions, and these doltish descriptions. As I say, but hello you. I'm Guru Larry, and I welcome you to Fact Hunt. 5 more idiotic things said by games journalists. The poor Wii U. It never really stood a chance to be a success. Between its ridiculous name, its poor initial reveal, and its flawed 2-screen core concept, it was doomed to fail. But like Sega's Dreamcast, it was an ill-fated console with a fantastic library of games. One such game was Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, which is a fun platform game starring Nintendo's famous ape. The game reviewed quite well overall and scored decently on Metacritic. However, one outlet thought it was pretty average. GameSpot. They awarded the title just 6 out of 10 on the Wii U, saying that the platforming was cheap and the level design was dull. Now, as we all know, the Wii U was a commercial failure and didn't sell many units. However, Nintendo's follow-up console, the Nintendo Switch, sold like body pillows at an anime convention. So, with explosive hardware sales, Nintendo decided to re-release Wii U games that didn't sell well on a popular Switch console. So when the Big N got around to resurrecting Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, GameSpot reviewed it again, but this time gave it 9 out of 10. So what's going on here then, I hear you ask? GameSpot's opinion had jumped from Donkey Kong being an average game to a great one. Did this mean that the Switch version was vastly superior to the Wii U release? No! Outside of some faster loading times, it was literally the exact same game. So what's happened here is that GameSpot has reviewed the same game twice and has given extremely different scores each time. Now, yes, it is different people reviewing each version, but only about 2 people in the world are going to know that Peter Brown liked it more than Mark Walton, and the general public do what Metacritic does, and just put the review scores down as what GameSpot said. And in this case, it looks like GameSpot can't make up its bloody mind. Doom and Edge magazine. 2 things are held in high regard by the gaming public. Doom being the seminal first-person shooter that essentially kick-started the entire genre, and Edge magazine, one of the last bastions of quality gaming print media. So it may surprise you to know that these 2 things collided back in 1994. Readers of Edge magazine were served up with a hot plate of stupidity. Now, Edge's review arrived just a few months after the game's initial shareware release, and it acknowledges that most of the world had already sang this game high praises already. But it does seem that, in this case, Edge was trying to be harsh on the game just for the sake of being different. However, there's trying to be different and just being asinine. Like agreeing the game is a technological achievement, but then saying it lacks the ability to look up and down like in Ultimate Underworld. This on screen now is Ultimate Underworld. Yes, this is seriously what Edge are comparing Doom to in technical ability. Or how about asking if there's anything in Doom that actually sets it apart from an average 2D shoot 'em up, because the gameplay loop was just kill, kill, kill. Well, there's Darius Force on the SNES, released about the same time as Doom, and as you can see from these review scores, possibly the most average example of a shoot 'em up. Now, with these 2 games set side by side, Let's just read Edge's words again and let this insanity sink in. What is there really in Doom to set it above the most average, most highly repetitive and tedious 2D shoot-'em-up? But it's the final words of the review that'll really have you scratching your heads and wondering what the hell Edge was smoking when they wrote this drivel. They're calling Doom a shallow game, but have an idea how it could be more engaging. If only you could talk to the creatures, then perhaps you could try and make friends of them, form alliances. Now, that would be interesting. Yes, Edge, what a fantastic idea it would be to break up this fast-paced action shooter with dialogue sections. Instead of firing a rocket launcher at a Baron of Hell, maybe you could have a nice chat and a coffee. What a bunch of morons. EGM, or Electronic Gaming Monthly, was an American gaming magazine that ran from 1988 to 2009. And over that sort of long time span, obviously something silly was going to get written down. But for now, we'll focus on the absurdity that was found within the pages of the April 1993 edition, which had a section covering both Star Fox on the Super NES and Sylphid on the Mega CD. Most people watching will obviously know Star Fox on the SNES already, well, unless you lived in the UK, as it was called Star Wing here, because the former name was already taken by an 8-bit computer game, or the name of a German company called Star Vox, depending on who your source is. So that was one of the games in the EGM article. The other was Sylphid on the Sega Mega CD. Now, Sylphid is the one that you're probably less familiar with. Like Star Fox, it used simple polygon graphics for the player and enemy spaceships, as well as for projectiles and power-ups. Where it didn't use polygon graphics was in those glorious backgrounds you can see on screen. This is a well-constructed FMV trick using a very particular colour palette to avoid any video dithering. EGM magazine covered Star Fox and Sylphid side by side, as they both featured polygon graphics of sorts. It's heavily implied through the comparison that the Mega CD is actually rendering 500,000 polygons, and they ask the reader which game they'd rather play based on the screenshots. Also, before you think EGM have gone completely mad with their caption saying that a Sega CD disc is 4.4 gigabit, they're not wrong there. Gigabit and gigabyte are two different types of data measurement, so we can't really add that to their list of incompetence. To be fair, EGM wasn't the only 90s gaming magazine that managed to be hoodwinked by the trickery on display in Sylphid. The UK's official Sega magazine was also fooled into believing that the Mega CD was outperforming even the best arcade hardware at the time, and that was written by someone who's better at counting frame rates than polygons. At the 2015 Sony E3 conference, one game that had been requested by players for years was finally confirmed. No, not Shenmue 3, but a remake of Final Fantasy VII. However, fans had to wait another 5 years before they could play Square Enix's magnum opus. But come the March of 2020, gamers finally got their grubby little mitts on it in the form of a demo for the PlayStation 4. Tech channels on YouTube analysed it, gamers sailed through it. However, Kotaku writer Chris Kohler found the game just too darn difficult, and the experience turned him off the game.
I have basically zero idea how to play that first boss fight. A million interlocking systems all thrown at you at once,
said the confused gentleman. As you'd expect, almost immediately people began mocking him in the replies, while others really got to the heart of the matter and wondered how a so-called professional games journalist could lack the abilities to pass such an early part of the game. And when you really deconstruct what Mr. Kohler said, he starts to look pretty stupid. He had zero idea how to fight the first boss. For his sake, I hope he does mean the iconic Scorpion boss and not the mid-area sweeper that you come up against beforehand.
A million interlocking systems all thrown at you at once.
Which would be true, if not for the fact each part of the battle system is explained to you in full via the game's forced pop-up tutorial system for around the first 15 minutes of the game. Not to mention that the battle system is not a million miles away from the turn-based system found in the original PS1 release, that in the last 25 years has been played by everyone in the entire world. But somehow, some way, a person who is paid to play and write about games all day found this little menu system right here just way beyond their mental capacity. Well, that's okay, Chris. There is a media outlet somewhere just crying out for someone to review Hello Kitty on the PS1 for them. Let's just hope a paraplegic hamster doesn't get in there before you do. Alright, yeah, this is an obvious one. But if I don't put it on this list, I'll get a million "you forgot" comments. So how could I miss one of the most ridiculous things ever written by IGN? In 2014, Nintendo released Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire on the Nintendo 3DS, remakes of 2002's Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire on the Game Boy Advance. When IGN reviewed the original GBA games, they liked them and scored them highly. But when they reviewed the 3DS remakes, they scored them lower, even though they're largely the same game, but from a different camera angle. Now, the reason this Pokemon review was so ridiculed is because of this little part in the cons section of the final review score. Too much water. When you read that, you instantly think that the reviewer has lost their mind and started complaining about the land mass to water ratio in Nintendo's latest Pikachu 'em up. Even though this was not really what IGN meant, that's how the phrase was taken by readers. IGN are at fault for readers getting the wrong idea, and there are two reasons to blame them here. When you write a review, but then attach an arbitrary number at the end to determine the game's quality, no one reads the review, they just skip straight to the end to see the score, rendering the entire wall of text obsolete. The other fault here is straight up poor quality writing. When they say too much water, what they actually meant is there's an unbalanced amount of water type Pokemon in the game, meaning that a decently powered electric type will see you hammer through a huge chunk of the game with ease. This is actually in the text part of the review, but no one saw that because it's easier to skip to the shiny, easy to read number at the end. And that's what people did. They saw the game had too much water and then began pumping out memes on an industrial scale. So many, in fact, I doubt IGN will ever be able to forget this. Which is probably for the best. Hello you. Thanks ever so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to be first to see future Fact Hunt episodes. Click on the bell if you already are to make sure you're notified. And be sure to check out my other episodes. And if you want to be super awesome, check out my Patreon. But thanks again for watching, and until next time friends, I'm missing you already.